Kyrie, James Harden, and the Nets square off against the Beard's former team, the Rockets, 7:30 Eastern. Then Steph and the Dubs take on Dame and the Trailblazers. Our coverage starts with Stephen A's pregame Sports Center. That's at 7. All right, y'all, you just heard me. James Harden returning to H-Town tonight to face his former team after signing with the Brooklyn Nets in January. Although the breakup from the Rockets after his 8-year tenure wasn't particularly pretty, but what breakup is? James Harden joined the Rockets in 2012, and in his 8+ seasons there, became the franchise's all-time leader in assists, three-pointers, and free throws, and only Hakeem Olajuwon scored more points. Harden led the Rockets to 8 straight playoff berths, including 2 trips to the conference finals. Here's what he had to say about his return.
Love and the appreciation that I've given to that city, and that I still give to that city. I'm hoping that the favor can be returned. You know, I thought I would never leave that franchise. I thought I was going to be Houston, obviously, for the rest of my career. Things happen. You know, I had different goals, and, you know, I seen a different vision for myself, my career, my family.
Stephen A., let me ask you this. Do you think Rockets fans should show James Harden love tonight?
I think Max has to go first on this, Molly, because I want to wait. I want to wait to give my answer here. Go ahead, Max.
Yes, they should show him love. James Harden made that franchise a perennial powerhouse. Now, he didn't show up big in the playoffs, which is why even though his regular season numbers are like Kobe Bryant or LeBron James, because he didn't perform in the playoffs and lead his team to the promised land as Kobe and LeBron have repeatedly, he is not thought of with those guys. And that's fair. He shouldn't be. You have to be Kobe or LeBron to get a big reception? Now, eventually he forced his way out of town. He kind of played his way out, right? Should the city boo him for that? Think about what it takes to win a championship. We think, Stephen A., if AD is not 100%, the Nets have a really good chance to win the championship. It's James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant, and shooters, and like everything you want, and we think there's a good chance they can win a championship. It is so hard to win a title, and for whatever reason, the state of Texas has not been seen by free agents, potential free agents, as a desirable enough or glamorous enough location for them to sign. The Rockets and the Mavs have had a hard time attracting, you know, A-level superstars, which is odd to me because it's warm weather, relatively glamorous, maybe not as much as New York or LA or Miami, but it's a relatively glamorous destination. As you always point out, Stephen A., no state income tax. Like, how much do you want? And yet, the Mavs and the Rockets have a hard time. Maybe it's because the Cowboys loom so large in that state that you always play second fiddle. I don't know what it is. But the fact is, James Harden was in a situation where he never really had quite enough. In spite of that, they came really close. And yes, he choked. If Harden would have played better, maybe they'd win the championship. But they came closer than they should have based on the talent they had, and a lot of that had to do with James Harden. And finally, Stephen A., the fans have to realize, while if they boo Harden, if they don't give him a good welcome back return, a reception, they may be thinking they're making commentary on Harden, but really the rest of the league it's commentary on themselves. Is that the kind of place that you want to play? When a dude has done as much for an organization as Harden has, and they treat him that way. I think it's even in their own best self-interest to give Harden a good welcome.
Well, we go away from the purposes of this show, Max Kellerman, because we don't disagree. I don't believe that Harden deserves to be booed. I want to make sure I'm very clear about that. But I do believe he will be. I don't think he deserves it. I don't think somebody that averaged 37 minutes a game in 8+ seasons for that team, that averaged 29, 7, and 6 in that span and took them to the playoffs every single year, not to mention coming out of his own pocket in terms of millions of dollars that he donated to causes to help with relief efforts and things of that nature with some of the catastrophes that they've had to deal with. He's been a model citizen, not to mention a great, great player for the franchise. And in that regard, he does not deserve to be booed, and I hope that he's not. But I must confess to you, I would be shocked if he's not booed, at least by some in attendance. Now, obviously, when you take into account his off-court philanthropic efforts and things of that nature, it's pretty hard to do anything negative towards him, and they shouldn't. From a basketball perspective, though, I can't knock them if they do boo him in this regard. He departs. He shows up. He's not in shape. It clearly is on purpose because he doesn't want to be there. Fair enough. Now that he's gone, they're one of the worst teams in basketball. His exit has basically plummeted the entire franchise. They are on a 12-game losing streak. They are in basketball purgatory right now. They're clearly one of the worst teams in the NBA. And there's no way around it. And I feel my heart goes out to Stephen Silas, who waited 20 years as an assistant to become a head coach, and this is what he's saddled with. John Wall is averaging 20-6. Christian Wood is averaging 22-10. Victor Oladipo hasn't been that great. He doesn't want to be there anyway. It's just not a good situation right now. But that also has something to do with James Harden. You wanted Dwight Howard, and then you didn't. You wanted Chris Paul, and then you didn't. You wanted to play with Russell Westbrook, and then y'all didn't want to play with one another. And along the way, they gave up assets. They don't do that if it were not for James Harden. So even though James Harden is absolutely phenomenal in every sense of the word as far as I'm concerned, and I don't view him as a person that choked in the postseason. He averaged 28, even though his numbers were down compared to what we're accustomed to seeing him doing in the regular season. If you want to use that as to describe it, but I don't consider that choking. In the end, what I'm saying is the ultimate indictment they will make against him if they choose to boo him is the fact that having to make a deal to send him to Brooklyn and garner assets in return because they had given them away in previous deals just to get him the assets that he had asked for. Those are the kind of things that people who know something about basketball in Houston may tend to hold against him because the state of affairs that exists now is primarily because they tried to give him everything he said he needed in order for them to elevate to another level. He wasn't wrong in doing that. He thought it gave them a best chance to go for the chip. He was right to do so, but it doesn't mean that they're going to interpret it that way. And that's why I'm fearful they're probably going to, some people anyway, are going to boo him.
That's reasonable. And it's fair to say. The only thing I would say is that when Golden State put that team together, Stephen A., with KD and Steph and Clay and Dre, and they had everybody, what are you going to do? Like, he had a good GM, a great GM, I think, in Houston. But once you're facing a team like that, what are you supposed to do? For example, Daryl Morey's done a great job in Philly, surrounding Simmons and Embiid with shooters. Look at the difference it's made. And yet, if you ask you or me or anyone, you really think they're going to beat the Nets when it comes down to it? Nah, man, KD and Kyrie and Harden, it's just too much. So all I'm saying is, if Fertitta and the fans, like this goes from ownership to fans, want to be the kind of place where players want to come together, consider the way you treat a dude like Harden when he returns. That makes a difference.
Well, that's fair. Remember, Daryl Morey doesn't have final say in Philadelphia. It's Elton Brand and Doc Rivers, too.
Here's the good news. Stephen A., you're pregame for this game, so you can talk about it more then. And Max, you have the Max Kellerman Show, so you got 2 hours to talk about this. So plenty more with these two later in the day. Aaron Rodgers, guys, we got to discuss that. Cover your ears, Aaron. What should Rodgers think of their GM saying they will not make a big splash in free agency after they drafted a quarterback last year? Very confusing.